is the photo of the window that my mother created. It has some wonderful things displayed in it, and it was in Knighton in Wales. And when I showed this photograph to my children, they were so fascinated with it. They spent about an hour looking at it, magnifying glasses and so on. That's my grandparents with my father when he was a baby, and this is when he was about 2. They used to dress little boys in girls' clothes for some reason in those days, and that was my grandmother, Granny Lewis, and grandfather that I never met, and my father joined up for the war. And this is the store. You can see how steep the road was because of this difference in the height of the windows, and it seems to be quite an important store. It's double fronted. That's me standing up in my carriage. I didn't want to be laying down. This is Knighton itself. This is where the shoe store was, just up from there. It's very lovely. That's my grandparents. Oh no, that's my mother and father and me. I won a baby concert, so I was the most beautiful baby. This is Granny Lewis. She was quite a beautiful lady. I'd love to know where that went. This is me in all my glory. And she had this beautiful little calling case that she used to carry her calling cards. When you called on people in those days, you left your calling card because you couldn't phone them since there wasn't a phone. And it's quite beautiful. This is the original one. This was hers. And this was the fan that my dad put. He didn't put it, it was on a box of Black Magic chocolates he gave to my mum. This is a picture of 2 weddings, my mother's, which came first, and my Auntie Lenny's later. This is very interesting to see the high style of the 20s in here. Their hats. And anyway, let me see. I can't see who's who. This is my Uncle Sidney, my mother's brother. This is my mother and father, of course. This is Lenny, very stylish. And this is on the steps at the back of Park Lane House, the one where you go down that long, long road to get to. And this is my Auntie Lenny. This was back to my mother for a minute. She carried her bouquet on a shepherd's crook to honour Knight in Wales, because they had a lot of sheep there. This is her sister, Auntie Lenny, and that's me. Was very poorly. I had scarlet fever. They didn't know till after the wedding. And the dresses were very pretty. They all had prints of some sort of flower on them, sweet peas. But the background for each gown was different. One was mauve, one was pink, one was blue, one was lemon. They were very, very pretty dresses. And Doug was quite a handsome, dashing fellow, secretly in love with him when I was 12. And of course Carl was secretly in love with me. Carl was my cousin. I don't think he's on any of these pictures. He wasn't born yet, that's why. What's this? Oh, this is my mother's wedding cake. And she kept the top of it for me to put on the christening cake of my firstborn, which happened to be my son, Chris. And this is Mark Hamburg. In those days, it would be 1932 or something like that. He was a famous pianist, and my mother toured with him over England, and she was termed the delightful soprano. And she loved it, but she was lonesome for her family life, so she never went on another tour. She always regretted really not being a professional anymore. You know, it was sort of a thing she was proud of, and that was, she found satisfaction in being the lead singer in the local operatic company and the choral company, and church, of course, was a big thing. Oh, one of the churches she went to, they gave her this lovely pin. This pin's 70 years old, I can't believe it. And I was there when she got it too. This tiny little woman had the biggest voice you could imagine. She never used a mic, and one time when she was visiting the States, she was going up the Empire State Building, and ahead of her there was a school teacher, and this school teacher was having great trouble with her class. They were all making a horrible noise, and the school teacher said, "Quiet, quiet." My mother let fly with a high C, and they all shut up immediately. It's sort of a nice memory. And another memory of my mother singing. She used to practice, of course, and we had a pussycat called Hoppy, and my mother would be practicing away and singing, and the pussycat would jump on the keyboard and run along it and try to put her whole face in my mother's mouth. Rather ruined her high C, I think. Now this is a picture of my parents. I think they were probably in their mid-30s or something. They were quite a good-looking couple, I think. I remember them sitting on the couch. She always sat sideways and put her legs on his lap, and he always called her his little beauty. He called her that all his life. It was very sweet. And she'd say, "Some little beauty I am." I think she was a little beauty. This is a very little partial family tree involving my grandparents on my mother's side, her 3 children, my mother, my Uncle Sidney and my Auntie Lenny. And that's it. And I want to tell you a couple of things about Sidney and Lenny. Sidney, he was a guy, he could make a weeping child laugh in a minute. One time I fell off a heavy stool, started to cry, and there he was. He pretended to fall off it himself. He went into such antics, he had the whole room in stitches. And then when he visited my grandmother, he always did the bump your nose on the door trick when he was leaving, and we always laughed. It just was always funny. It really is. He kicked it with his toe, you know, then he pretended he'd hurt his nose. And besides whistling so beautifully, he also played the mouth organ, and he painted. He loved to paint in oils, but he never did anything professionally with that. And regarding my Auntie Lenny, first of all, she changed her name. She couldn't stand being called Nellie, especially after she married a man called Brown, and she became Nellie Brown. She thought people would be singing that old awful song, "Knees Up, Mother Brown." And but she was extremely stylish, and she used to go to all the most magnificent stores in Birmingham, and with her magic eye memorize the high fashion, and then skillfully reproduce these garments very cheaply at home on her sturdy sewing machine. I always thought of her as my glamorous aunt, and of course her husband was glamorous too. They organized a cine club when I was a kid, and they used to take lots of moving pictures, which was, we thought that was absolutely marvelous. We thought they must be awfully rich to do that. And they also went on a Mediterranean cruise in about 1936. That was very exciting and sophisticated, and it was just a fun couple. Later on, of course, Lenny was widowed quite early on in life, 1946 I think it was. Doug died of a massive heart attack, and then we used to go and visit her. She went to live in Weston-super-Mare, and she was so exciting to visit. You'd go in and her eyes would all light up. They were dark brown, and she'd be sparkling, telling us about choice of lovely outings we could go on. She said, "Well, I've got 3 outings. We can go here, we can go there," and then we'd jump in the car and off we'd go and have English scones and whipped cream and tea, and enjoy ourselves immensely. That's Lenny. I created this because I wanted a fun beginning to my memories, and so I superimposed my face in there, and that's how it would have looked if I'd been in Wales earlier than I was. I think she's quite like me in a way, because look at the naughty little way she's got her skirt peeping up, and she's got a handsome Scotsman close by. And I like the Welsh outfits. I think it's really nice. So that was my beginning photograph for the album. Just reflect next time you flip that button on your washing machine. It takes you 1 minute to do it. What Polly's wash day was like. First of all, it involved about 30 different jobs, which took all day, were very strenuous. Before she could start her wash day, Grandad had to build a coal fire underneath the boiler, which was a great big stone thing at the corner of the kitchen. And while she was waiting for the water to boil, she'll assemble her equipment, big wooden tub like half a beer barrel, another big pan for rinse water, a mangle, which is a great big apparatus, you call it a wringer, I think, to wring the clothes, the wheel that was a big steel wheel, very heavy. The rollers were big wooden things, and then another pan for the bluing, and another big basket for when the clothes were mangled. And then she'd shred soap into the boiler to boil the clothes in soapy water. And then the whole thing was a nightmare of boiling water, wringing, rinsing, doing all sorts of horrible things, starching, and this took so long. And then at the very end of it, she had this big basket, wicker, it was heavy. Then she'd totter out to the door with it and carry it down a long pathway made of stone, down a flight of steps, and then she'd hang them on the line, walking through what's probably a muddy garden. And she was lucky if it didn't rain while they were hanging there, and she had to go and get them all in. Well, then meanwhile, Grandad's at the iron factory. He's moulding things out of sand to make big equipment like bathtubs and things. And he wore a little cloth cap which was full of cinder holes from the boiling iron that he was pouring. He had no safety glasses, no safety shoes, and he didn't even have work clothes. He had to wear last year's old suit to work, or maybe it was probably last 10 years ago old suit. It was just horrible. Then we'd come home at lunchtime, and my grandmother would have cooked a big dinner for him in amongst all this washing. And then he'd go back to the factory again. He knew when to go back because all the factories had a different whistle. They to let the men, it was 10 minutes to go back. I don't know whether they didn't have any clocks or what it was. And then he'd say, oh, there's Lloyd's whistle, or there's Beebe's whistle, and then they'd all go back. You'd see crowds of workmen going back to work.